Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. The Apostle John seems to be describing in Revelation chapter 12 a constellation, what he's seeing in the stars. If we look at a Stellarium constellation program that you can download for free for your computer, we find this image that looks to be exactly what he just described. And what's very amazing is the date of this image, September 23rd, 2017. So we have exactly what he's talking about, a great sign. We have the sun here, clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet. Yes, directly under her feet is the moon. Now this, and then it says on her head a garland of 12 stars. We have the constellation Leo, the lion, right above her, and it has 9 stars that are the main description of Leo. There's more stars, but that's the main figures that's recognized as Leo. So you have 9 stars of Leo, and then you got 3 planets, Venus, Mars, and Mercury. That's 12 stars. It's unusual for Mercury, Mars, and Venus to be evenly spaced. Usually it's all scattered. But what is very unusual is something else that we see. If we look at Jupiter, Jupiter has just made a zigzag motion back and forth inside Virgo over the past 293 days. If we look at what John said next, it's pretty amazing. He says, "Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth." Let's take a look at the motion of Jupiter going into Virgo from 2016 up until September the 23rd, 2017, when John starts Revelation 12. He goes back and forth in Virgo's belly, just like a child that's being born right there. On the 10th, Virgo was born, and only 13 days later, John mentions what he sees. These signs are back to back. This doesn't happen, very, very rare. The next time this will happen will be the year 2100. And Jupiter will make a similar path in Virgo, but it won't be good then, because Saturn will be inside Virgo too, and there won't be 12 stars at her head at that time. So for these two instances to line up is highly unlikely, if it ever happens again. Jupiter spent 293 days inside of Virgo, equal to a normal human pregnancy, and then he was born. 13 days later, John mentions this, where he sees the sun, the moon, and the stars, and he describes the birth. So it seems to be exactly what John was talking about in the stars. And these two events, as we said, do not, if they ever repeat, I don't think they do. This appears to be the time period he is talking about and he's seeing. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 diadems on his heads. His tail drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven, and threw them to the earth. This sounds just like he's talking about a meteor storm, throwing the stars to the earth. If we look at the constellation Draco, which is the dragon, there is a comet that makes a meteor storm coming from the head or the mouth of the dragon. And it's this 21P Giacobini-Zinner comet. It was discovered on December 20th, 1900 by Michael Giacobini. It was discovered on the 4th day of Hanukkah. Everything about this comet seems to be associated with the Jewish people.
It was also in 1900. That was during the first Aliyah, or the ascent into Israel, from 1883 to 1903 about. The first group of Jewish people began to go back to their homeland. So this comet was discovered during that time on the 4th day of Hanukkah, and he observed it for a couple of months and determined that it had a 6.5 year orbital cycle, and then they lost it. And it wasn't until till I think about 1913 that Ernst Zinner rediscovered the comet, and then they found out it was the same comet, and so they added his name to the title, and it became Giacobini-Zinner. What is very fascinating is when we pull up the data from NASA's Horizon database, and we look at the close approach data for this comet, and we look in 2018 on September 10th. There are 2 close approaches on the same day. This is not only rare, it's unheard of. What is fascinating about September 10th, 2018, here it is again on a visual of the close approach to the Earth, and then the little red dot is to the Sun. Two solar bodies on the exact same day. It makes its closest approach in its entire 6.5 year cycle. September the 10th, 2018, when it makes 2 close approaches, just happens to be an appointed time. Yom Teruah, the day of alarm. This is not only one sign, it's 2 signs on an appointed time. There's something up about this comet, something important that's going to be happening in 2018. Side lane of a racetrack, and just right behind the comet. It's perfectly positioned for another storm. What is amazing is this will be the last time that you'll see a storm from the dragon, from this comet, because in 2029 the Earth is going to pass close by. And so that happens on 2018, October 8 at 2300 hours, Universal Standard Time. Look at the star chart in 2018 on October the 8th. We're looking from Jerusalem, and we're looking at 7 in the evening. Probably 1 hour later, it started about 8, lasts for 4 or 5. Both of them lasted about 4.5 to 5 hours long of meteor storm. It's going to be different this time in Israel, because the plane angle, it won't be crossed till around 1 in the morning. So it won't be so high in the sky like it was here in Europe. So you're not going to see the stars coming down upon you as much as you did in Europe. What's it going to look like? Let's go down to the time of 1 in the morning. Right there. That is where the dragon will be in 2018 on October the 9th and 1 in the morning when it crosses the plane angle. That's when to expect the meteor storm. It's very low in the sky. It's not high. So it's very reasonable. That's why John only saw 1/3 of the stars cast to the ground. It's so low. Go backwards. Look how the tail has curled around like it's scooping up the stars. Like it's scooping them up. And then you're going to see it coming from the head at 1 in the morning, Israeli time. So everything lines up perfect with what the Apostle John saw over 2,000 years ago. Amazing. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. He stood before the woman. Look at what the constellations look like from just a perspective of every day, the rising and setting. The twisted serpent
his head is going to go above the gray area is the horizon. We're looking through the earth like it doesn't exist. This program allows you to do it. His head rose just as Virgo did. And then at sunset, you're seeing going right down, it just broke the horizon. Virgo is now below the horizon, although we're seeing through the earth and we're acting like we can still see. Look at the serpent pursuing the woman. So she bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God in his throne. So now we have a change. He's talking about Jupiter. Jupiter represents the Messiah, Yeshua. He was born, he was caught up to the throne. But here John makes a very subtle change. We started out with Virgo representing Israel. Jupiter's the Messiah. But now he's going to keep following Jupiter, and this is the key. This is the thing that to understand Revelation 12 is he's following Jupiter. And now he starts to identify Jupiter with Israel. Well, how as the woman? And then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. He's looking forward, and we're gonna follow Jupiter, and we'll see Jupiter will do exactly as John mentioned here. And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought, but they did not prevail. Nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. We have a war here, and we're going to see that in the stars. We're going to watch where Saturn is at the beginning of Revelation chapter 12, when he sees the woman with the sun and the moon and the 12 stars. This is the exact same date, the 23rd of September, and instead of looking at the woman, we're looking at where Saturn is at. Saturn just happens to be in the Scorpion and Ophiuchus, the evil kingdom. Serpents and scorpions represent the power of the enemy. You have Saturn representing Satan, is in the power of the enemy, and not only that, you see he's on the dark horse. You can lightly see the dark horse nebula, and he's right there in his dark horse, seated in authority. The horse is like a power and authority. He's seated in authority in his evil kingdom, right when the same time that John starts Revelation chapter 12. So we're going to follow Saturn now, and instead of following the woman Virgo, we're going to see what happened to Saturn from this very time. So he's positioned in a high and sitting pretty at this point. Here Mercury comes down, makes a sweep right there. I mean, how else would you show a fight with the stars? And then he comes down and makes a second punch. Saturn started out in the dark horse, which was in the right leg of Ophiuchus. You can see where he started. Look where he ended. After the fight was over, he's in Sagittarius, the centaur with the bow. That represents the battlefield. He's in another constellation now. He's out of that evil kingdom, and now he's on the battlefield. Let's look at. Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, "Now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren, who accused them before our God day and night, has been cast down, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And they did not love their lives to the death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. Now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child." So now John is going to talk about
He persecuted the woman. He's going to identify Jupiter with the woman now. Okay? So let's watch. So Mars approaches Jupiter, and Mercury's finishing the fight with Saturn. There's the collision, Mars with Jupiter. Mercury's finishing the final blow on Saturn, knocks him out of his kingdom. Now watch Mars. The planets are on the regular progression from the right to the left. They're traveling, but watch what happens when Mars pulls even with Saturn. Saturn is right over the Centaur, Sagittarius' head. Right there, watch what happens. Jupiter stops. Now Saturn stops. Now Jupiter retreats. As soon as Mars comes even with Saturn, he stops. He goes irate. And now he begins to pursue Jupiter. They're both doing the retrograde motion now. Okay, notice Saturn is at the Centaur's head. But now he's going to go back like he's trying to get back into his evil kingdom. Saturn's migrating towards the bow of Centaur now. Jupiter's at the far as he can go, almost out of Libra. Jupiter has to now start going back in a forward motion. Saturn is as far as he can go now, and he has to halt his pursuit. He is not permitted to re-enter that kingdom. He's been cast out. He's on the battlefield and he can't get back in his kingdom. He's right at the edge of Sagittarius. That's as far as he can get. He can't pursue Jupiter any further. He tried. And so he sits there. He sits there for a month and just he's motionless until his motion takes back over to the normal pattern. And so while he sits there, at the end of 1 month, guess what? You've got the Draconid meteor storm, October 9th, that we just saw, 2018, where 1/3 of the stars are cast to the earth. So you've got about 9-month period from when he's cast into Sagittarius to when you see the dragon cast in the stars, 1/3 to the earth. But there you see Saturn pursuing the woman, represented by Jupiter. The next, we're going to follow Jupiter now. This is the whole key to Revelation 12, is John is following Jupiter and interpreting what he's seeing and the images and what's happening to Jupiter he's describing. Now this part is not really described by John, but it's what happens next. Jupiter is in the Libra constellation. Its future's in the balance. It's being persecuted by Saturn, Satan. Jupiter is representing Israel. Mercury is now going to escort Jupiter into the dark kingdom. This is a dangerous area to enter. It's a power of the enemy. You see, you got the Ophiuchus, you got the serpent handler. You see his serpent he's holding. There's serpents. You got the scorpion. You got the dark horse, the dark river. All of this is in this constellation, the power of the enemy. So Israel's going into bad territory. But Mercury, representing the angels of God, is going to protect him. And watch how Mercury, side by side, is going to escort Jupiter into the dangerous dark kingdom. He goes ahead of Jupiter, clears the way, comes back, circles behind, guards him from behind as he enters, and then he goes back out in front of him. Just give him protective cover as Jupiter enters the scorpion. So an interesting analogy that John doesn't talk about, but you see the protection of Israel by the angels of God, even though Israel's being persecuted. Okay, Jupiter has continued to go into the dark kingdom. It goes up through the Dark Horse Nebula, then it stops, and it starts to get into its retrograde motion. And it's beginning to go back down. And on the eve of Passover, it's about to enter the Dark Horse. And you can lightly see the Dark Horse right there. On Passover, Jupiter will enter the Dark Horse.
And there's the calendar, 2019, the 14th of Nisan, the first day of Passover. Isn't that interesting? Jupiter enters the dark horse. Not good. This is 6 months after the Draconoid meteor storm, where 1/3 of the stars are cast. That represents the rise of anti-Jewish power. Could this be the rise of the Antichrist? Let's look. In the middle of the Passover week, look what joins Jupiter in the dark horse. This is only 4 days later. So not only is Jupiter in the dark horse, he's joined by the moon. What's the significance of seeing Jupiter and the moon? You have a moon and a star. Doesn't that look familiar? What happens next? Jupiter begins a 95-day drift down the dark river. He's helpless. Israel can barely see it, but try to notice it. It is following exactly the dark river. It's like it's drifting down the dark river. What are the chances that its retrograde motion would line up perfect with the dark river nebula? That is astronomical. It's just another sign that's happening. It's lining up perfectly. All of these signs are perfectly aligned. So watch Jupiter go right down the dark river. It's going to be right down the very middle of the river, symbolizing under the power of the enemy. Now we're going to see this picture flip around in different angles because it's taking a snapshot every week, and it's at 24-hour periods, and the constellations are moving around, so that's why we're seeing it upside down here. But see, it's right down the dark river, and now it's starting to swim back up, and he's back in the dark horse where he started. Finally, Jupiter gets back past the dark horse. Right here, he's right on the dark horse, because that's right in the right leg of Ophiuchus. Now Jupiter's going to leave the kingdom of darkness. Thank God. Okay, where's he going to go, though? He's going to go into the battlefield. Not good. So we're going to watch what happens to Jupiter. And we're going forward 1 week at a time, 7 days. And we're just watching Jupiter. He's going into the battlefield. It looks good, but as soon as it enters, watch what happens. You have a solar eclipse right there, greeting him. Not a good sign. Saturn's waiting. Mercury has some temporary relief, but Mercury goes on by. It looks like Israel's going to be on their own to fight. Saturn's sitting there just waiting. Now watch, the evil planet appears. Mars. Remember what happened before. Mars, when it pulled even with Saturn, Saturn went berserk and started pursuing Jupiter. Let's see what happens. As soon as he does it again. He stops. And now they face off for 50 days. Jupiter stops. As soon as Mars pull even with Saturn, he stops his forward progression, and now they're entering into a retrograde motion phase. Now they're both going in the retrograde motion. That represents Saturn pursuing Jupiter. And now you can see he's going back down into Sagittarius. It looked like Jupiter might get out of the battlefield, but now he's being chased back onto the battlefield. Now the retrograde motion stops. They're going to have to go forward. Jupiter's going to be forced to confront Saturn. And Saturn is just waiting. Jupiter's motion is faster than Saturn's. Saturn's orbit is twice as far from the sun because he's twice as far from the glory. So Jupiter is going to catch up with Saturn. There's nothing Israel can do. It's going to be a confrontation. And there you have it, the clash on the 21st of December in 2020. It's called the Great Conjunction. This happens once every 20 years. And every 20 years, it's like 60 degrees further in the sky, or 120 degrees further. So it'll be
it'll be 60 more years before Saturn and Jupiter ever clash in this region of the sky again. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the presence of the serpent. Look at the constellations. You see Jupiter at the bottom is right there getting ready to enter Capricornus, where he just clashed with Saturn. But there's Aquila, the eagle constellation, is right above it. Right there. That has to be what John is seeing. There's the great eagle. The eagle is the 22nd largest constellation. Capricornus is the 40th largest. So the eagle is much bigger than Capricornus. It is a great eagle. And it fits in perfectly with the events we've been seeing. And now he brings in the eagle just as Jupiter is going into Capricornus. Isn't that amazing? Capricornus represents the wilderness and will say, "He shall take 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Then Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats, one lot for the Lord and the other lot for the scapegoat, Azazel. And Aaron shall bring the goat on which the Lord's lot fell, and the other it is a sin offering. But the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to make atonement upon it, and to let it go as a scapegoat into the wilderness. Aaron shall lay both his hands on the head of the live goat, confess over it all the iniquities of the children of Israel, and all their transgressions concerning all their sins, putting them on the head of the goat, and shall send it away into the wilderness by the hand of a suitable man. The goat shall bear on itself all their iniquities to an uninhabited land, and he shall release the goat in the wilderness." 3 times the goat goes to the wilderness. And the word scapegoat is the English translation. It's Azazel. The book of Enoch tells us that Azazel was one of the watchers, one of the angels that descended on Mount Hermon, took wives of men, and that's where we get the giants in Genesis. And God was so mad at Azazel, he said, "Unto him be ascribed all sin." Azazel taught how to make weapons of warfare and how to work with metal and all kinds of things. The eternal secrets hidden in heaven, he taught them to men. And God says, put him in the desert and cover him with rocks. So there's the wilderness. And then now he's, this same word, Azazel, he's saying, call that goat Azazel and send him into the wilderness. Well, Capricornus has a goat head. It has a fish. You see the tail of a fish here. And there's just symbolic of the Greek goddess Pan that was turned into a fish. But anyway, it represents a wilderness. Here is a very interesting proof when we look at Yeshua's 30th birthday. We're going back in time. We're going to 28, Common Era. And he's just turned 30 years old. And we're determining this date from his birth was when Jupiter, again representing Messiah, joined up with the star of the king in the lion, which is today called Regulus. That represented Yeshua's birthday on September 14th, 3 BC. So when he was 30, it would be on this date. And it's the September the 12th now because we're going by the Hebrew calendar, not the Julian. So this is the 4th day of Tishri. He's 30 years old. We're going to watch what Jupiter does. Look where Jupiter is. He's in Capricornus. What do we know about Yeshua that happened when he turned 30? The first thing, what? He got sent to the wilderness. So we're going to watch as the Jupiter goes from Yeshua's 30th birthday. We're going to go day by day. He's going to have 11 days, and then it's going to be the first day of Tabernacles, Sukkot, and he's going to get baptized by John the Baptist. There it is. Now, that start. He immediately went to the wilderness because John the Baptist was baptizing in the wilderness. So he's right there. He goes in the wilderness, and he's got 40 days, right? But all of these 40 days, Jupiter is in Capricornus with the goat head representing the wilderness. But look at what is happening in 28. Mars is coming in now. We know what Mars did in 2020, but look at what happens as Mars approaches Jupiter. Jupiter represents a Messiah, you know. On the 40th day, he makes his closest approach. Actually, this is showing the very end of the 40th day. That's why Mars is a little bit past Jupiter. This is almost the end of the day. So it is the day that he makes the closest approach to Jupiter. That is when Satan tempted Yeshua with the temptations after the 40 days. Interesting. These stars are showing us what happened all the way back 2,000 years ago, and it's accurate. It lines up. It lines up with when Yeshua was born. It lines up when he was in the wilderness, and it's lining up in 2017 on. Amazing. The heavens are declaring the glory of God. They're preaching the gospel. And here we see the wilderness is in Capricornus when Yeshua is in the wilderness. Incredible. Okay, we're going to go back to where we left off. Saturn had just clashed with Jupiter. We're back into 2020. And we're going to watch Israel go into the wilderness. Okay, we have, Mercury, the angels of God are coming in, escorting Israel into the wilderness. Now watch Mercury. It's going to make a big circle around the whole wilderness. Watch Venus, peace. It's coming in to bring peace and comfort. Mercury's making a big circle around now, going in between Saturn, protecting Israel from Satan. And now Mercury goes on and leads the way into Aquarius. But you see how Israel is protected in the wilderness. And now Israel's ready to leave the wilderness. But look at what happens. It's getting ready to enter Aquarius. We're going ahead a week at a time still. Jumping ahead every 7 days. Jupiter goes into the middle of Aquarius and starts to slow down. It's getting ready to enter retrograde motion. But it's like it sees the water. And then it slows down. And then it stops. It sees the water. It says, no. It turns around and now it retreats back into the wilderness. But it's protected in the wilderness, right? We're told it's protected. So here Jupiter is having to go back. The retrograde motion is taking it back into the wilderness. But fortunately, the retrograde motion is simultaneously affecting Saturn, and it's pushed to the far side of the wilderness. You see, it's pushed away from Israel. It cannot bother it in the wilderness. All right, now it's finally stopped its retrograde motion. It's going to have to start going back forward again. This is an amazing verse here. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. We'll have Jupiter heading back into Aquarius. And we're still jumping 1 week at a time. The retrograde motion is stopped. It's back in its normal progression. It's going to have no choice. It's in Aquarius. It's going to have to go, and look at what it has. There's a stream of water. The serpent spews the water out. And here is the water. Is there any doubt this is what John is looking at? And this is sequentially happening exactly with everything Jupiter's been doing. Jupiter enters the stream, the flood, the serpent spews after him. Mercury is rushing in to help. The angels of God are coming in, and finally As Jupiter exits the stream, Mercury delivers it. The angels have delivered it from the flood. The earth opened up its mouth and helped the woman. Let's go ahead. Let's step ahead one more week from this. And we just simply have moved the picture down. And we see Venus and Mars appear. You still have Saturn in the edge of the wilderness. But you have Mars coming. You know what happens when Mars comes even with Saturn? 1 week later, Mars joins Saturn again. 2 times before Mars has joined Saturn, what does he do? He goes berserk and he pursues the Israeli nation, Jupiter. But he can't do it this time. Why? Jupiter's orbit he's already passed Saturn. Jupiter's orbit is faster. Saturn can't catch up with Jupiter. He can't pursue Jupiter anymore. We're showing exactly what's happened, because here we have John saying, and the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ.